Hi and welcome back to the next episode of Up the Shed. Lots to catch up with this week, guys. I've got some projects on the bench that I need to continue with in some cases and start and finish in others. I've got some projects that I need to get done around the shed itself. I want to try and run some airlines as a sort of like a temporary permanent thing, just to get this main one that I've got on the floor while he's trailing around out of the way. I've had some new tools come in that I'm going to share with you, and new bits and pieces that I bought for myself. And I've had loads of packages come in today. Quite a few that are for these projects. So I'm going to get you into the bench and we're going to share what's been going on and where we are, and then we'll get on with today's project, which will be making a bush for this 4mm brooch. So we're going to make that today, and then we'll go through, we'll talk about that when we get you into the bench. So let's get you in. Okay, well, as you can see, I've got 3 projects here. This is one that I've already started. So these are some titanium rods that are threaded M6 by 1 each end, and I've also had a 30mm piece of titanium grade 5 come in for some oil plugs and a couple other bits and pieces. So we'll get on with that. Unfortunately, as I said, we need to broach a new 45 tooth back gear, which I split, or I cracked, that's for the lathe. And that's what this is still in the chuck for. I'm hoping I can dial that back in, but I was cutting a 22 by 1.5mm thread. I wanted to, unfortunately that broke, but we'll get onto that in a bit. We've got an output shaft here, a square to round output shaft that I need to get done, and a bicycle hitch pin that someone sent for me to make, and we'll get that done as these progress through the jobs. So as I say, I've got some new tools. So we've got a nice 12-inch level here, engineering level. This is a more and right. It's out of calibration, but I think for what I do, it's going to be an absolute boon to have here. Not only for when I, set things back up and whatever, just to check level on the milling machine and on the lathe, obviously. So that's all good. With that, I've actually decided to buy some. When I got that through, I recently purchased some ER40 collet blocks. I've got a hex block there and a square one there, and I've also got my first ER40 collet 22mm there, and that's for these oil plugs that I'm going to make at a later date. So that's all good. And then along with those came some drill bits and pieces for that project, some tips, some a reamer, 6mm reamer for different bits and pieces for that. In one of the packages I've got today, I actually want to repair this revolving centre. So the bearings of this were shot. This was all over the place. So I've got some high-end bearings to go into this. So hopefully that will make that a nice cheap repair for me. As you can mostly see around the bench, there's a few other things. So I'm looking to run some airlines. So I've got a 1/4 BSP to 8mm nylon line connectors. So at some point we'll be making a manifold. So hopefully I'm going to video that as well to get that done. And once I've got that, it'll be great, because at the moment I've been playing with the idea of broaching internal hexes. So this is just aluminium, but as we can see, we've got a 5mm hex there. So I'm looking to perfect that process on the mill, and at the moment, and then we can then expand that to do bigger hexes, so on and so forth. So things that we got today that came in were a nice cheap and cheerful misting system, cooling system. That's another project there. This is the actual gears that I bought, so that's the one we have. So I need to make a bushing for this, so we're going to measure that up and I'll make a bushing for that, and then the second part of that will be actually boring this out to size and broaching the keyway. And I'm lucky enough I've been lent this. I don't actually have any keyway broaches, but I've been lent that. So as you can see, if I can get in there, maybe if that will pick that up. You see the teeth's been shattered there and there in a couple of places. Not sure why that happened. I haven't really used the 1.5 that much, but maybe it was just a fault in the casting. We've also got, as I say, the bearings. So we've got the 3 bearings there, which will go into the revolving centre. And then I bought some new tips and threading tips and inserts for specifically to run with the titanium. They're for that. They do a better job on that. So we'll be trying them out in the future, along with some. I've got some soluble cutting fluid there, and the last one is this little hitch pin project that was sent to me. So I've just copied that out, essentially drawn that out, and we'll get that done over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, if not sooner, and send that out. So as I say, we're making a bush for this brooch, so we're just going to chuck some material in the lathe, and I haven't got anything specifically for this. I haven't got any dimensions as such. I'm just going to do it as we go along, really. So let's crack on. I'll get something in the, as I say, I'll get a piece in the lathe, and then we'll get to machining. Okay, well, as you can see, we've mounted a bit of stock, a bit of mild steel in the lathe, and I've just literally faced this off before turning the camera on. So we need this bush to fit the internal size of this when it's bored out. So this is 16.08 according to that. So we're going to aim for a 16mm bush, and then what we'll do is eventually in part 2 we'll bore this new back gear out to suit 60mm, and then we'll obviously broach the 4mm Keyway. Okay, so let's get this turned down to 16mm. I've just put a couple of marks on here. This is sort of roughly 35 and 40mm or thereabout length. I don't think it needs to be sort of much longer than that, really. I think that gives us a good length to keep it nice and straight in there, and keep the broach nice and straight. But we'll turn down to those dimensions, and we'll go from there. So let's crack on. This is the final cut, so this will take it down to just under about 0.01, 0.02 under 16mm. We'll get this cut and chamfer the ends, and we'll do a test fit with the old back gear. Exactly a great finish on there, but this has got to be functional. I really need to get a proper chamfering tool done. So let's see. Okay, so that's a bit tight on there. I think what we'll do is we'll get some emery cloth, we'll polish that out, and I'll bring you back once I've done that. Okay, well, just give that a quick polish up, and that now slips on there, nice, which is good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spin this around, part the rest off, and then I'll bring you back when we're in the mill, ready to cut the slot that holds the actual brooch, so we can do this keyway. Okay, I'll bring you back then. Okay, well, as you can see, we've got the bush mounted in the vise. I still don't have any parallels. I'm still looking out for them, still trying to buy some. So what I use, I've got some 1/2 inch tool steel, so I'll just build that up until it gets to the required height where I'm happy with it. So what I've got here is an electronic or edge finder, essentially. Once it makes contact, a little red light shines. So we just get this to one side, and then we'll zero out the DRO and use the half function. So we're there, so I'll zero the DRO on the y-axis. And what I do is I tend to come off and then just go back on. And zero again, and then we'll go to the other side. And wait for the light. So we're there, 10.8, just come off of that, and back on. Okay, and we'll use the half function, half Y, and then we'll just take that back to 0. And then we'll lock the saddle. Okay, so all I'm going to do now, I'm going to change this out for an 8mm cutting bit, and we'll touch off, and then what we'll do is we'll measure the actual brooch to make sure that we get this depth in there first of all, and then we'll work out, I need to do some calculations between this and this. I must do that off camera to find out what depth we actually want the slot in there, so this runs nice and true. Okay, as I say, I'll get that done off camera, and then I'll bring you back when we're set up with the cutter in there. Okay, so what I've done is I've measured the brooch in 2 places, here across this height and here across this height. Now this is 9.2 and this is 9.92, so over the whole distance there it's cut in 0.7 of a millimetre from end to end. Okay, so I've got to have a 2mm keyway in my back gear, and I've got some 1/2mm shims, so I want this to be able to cut 0.5 in its first pass. So if I cut this hole here from this surface down to 9.4, then the first pass should start hitting somewhere up here and then take out the rest to 0.9. So that will take out 1/2mm, and then we place another 1/2mm shim behind it, which will give me again that 1/2mm cut all the way down. That's my thought process, that's what I'm thinking, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's hope it works. I'm thinking every time I'm just going to take 1/2mm out when I put a shim behind it. So yeah, so we're going to start at 0.4. So this will be from this surface 9.4. So I've zeroed out on here, and then I've dropped the knee down so I can clear this part of the bush, and then once we're down this will zero out, and then we'll go 9.4 down from that location. So let's move this out of the way and let's get on with it. do is we'll quickly get the broach. That fits in there. Nice, just a little bit of play. This is an 8mm cutter. This was coming out at 7.94. So there's just a little bit of play there. So I think that'll be perfect. Okay. I'll get this out of the mill and we'll get back to the bench. Okay, well, as you can see, we're back at the bench. It's a nice fit. The fitment into that old back gear is nice. So what I'm going to do is, I've only got one of these. I'm going to take another piece of mild steel just out of the scrap bin, bore a 16mm hole within it, and then, you know, not too much thicker than that, most probably, whatever I can find. Put this in and then broach the keyway in there to ensure that what I've done is correct and my thought process is correct. So for my shims, I've actually got the shims that come with it. I was lent this by a local engineering company, very gracious of them. But what I have got are some old rulers here. Now these are 0.5mm in thickness. So what I'm going to do is trim these down, and then must cut them in half, trim them down, and then just bend them over, and then they'll sit basically in the back behind the broach, and then that can be stepped out to take up the gap to hopefully then cut a 2mm keyway to match the one that's there. But as I say, I'll do that on a separate piece of material, and that will be in the next video. So yeah, we've got a little ways to go on that, and a few more bits and pieces there, but hopefully when we do this broaching for the first time, it will be correct once we've done a trial piece, and that will be in the next video. Okay. Okay guys, well that's the end of this little video. I hope you've enjoyed coming along and seeing the new tools that are coming into the shed, and obviously the process there of making a bush for a Keyway Broach tool there. As I say, lots of stuff coming up, plenty of stuff to do in this shed and with other projects as well, not only within the shed but those that are coming to me from friends on Facebook. So stay tuned for all of that great content that's coming up. If you haven't already guys, then please hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the great content. Please stay safe, take care, many thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.